Welcome to The Focused View, the podcast for eye care professionals across Australia. Brought to you by Opticare. In each episode, we bring together leading eye care, optical and business professionals to share valuable insights, practical tips, and the latest trends shaping the optical business landscape. I'm your host, Michael Nasser, and together we'll explore innovative strategies for practice growth, patient care, and business success in the eye care industry. Whether you're starting your career, managing a practice, or just looking to stay ahead of the field, The Focused View is your source for inspiration and knowledge. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's episode, we've got some exciting news. The Focused View will be partaking in the upcoming OptiPro Roadshow this August, and we'll be recording live episodes at the event. OptiPro is hosting a series of roadshows across the country, providing an excellent opportunity for you to engage with key industry players and discover new products and services. We are thrilled to announce that the Focused View podcast will be recording live at these events. This is your chance to be part of our live audience, engage in discussions, and see behind the scenes of how our podcast is made. The roadshow will kick off on August 9th in Perth, followed by events on August 14th in Sydney and August 23rd in Brisbane. We invite you to join us at these events, where you have the chance to meet fellow eye care professionals and participate in thought-provocative discussions. Plus, you'll get to see the Focused View podcast recorded live. There'll also be a Q&A session focused on topics that will help you improve your business, offering valuable insights and practical advice from industry experts. And to make it even more exciting, there'll be prizes and giveaways at the events. OptiPro is dedicated to supporting independent optical practices by providing comprehensive business support, marketing assistance, and educational opportunities. Their mission is to foster a strong community of independent practitioners, ensuring that you have access to the best possible care and expertise. Don't miss out on this unique event and come and be a part of the action with us. For more details and to RSVP, visit thefocusedview.com.au. We can't wait to see you there. Now, back to today's episode. Welcome to another episode of The Focused View, the podcast where we delve into the latest trends, insights, and innovations in the field of optometry. Today, we have a special episode featuring Fatin Tobia, the director of Eye2eye Marketing 360. Eye2eye Marketing 360 is dedicated to helping optometry practices enhance patient engagement and drive practice growth through effective marketing strategies. Fatin, with her extensive background in marketing within the optometry field, brings a wealth of knowledge on how practices can optimize their patient recall systems to improve both patient care and business outcomes. In today's episode, we will explore the importance of patient recalls, discuss key performance indicators related to recalls, and delve into how maintaining regular communication with existing patients can significantly contribute to a practice's success. Before we dive in, a quick reminder to check out our previous episodes and subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Thanks for joining us, and let's get started with our conversation with Fatin from Eye2eye Marketing 360. Fatin, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me along today. I'm excited to be here.
Well, let's get straight into it. So I guess there's a bit of a background. What we like to do for all of our guests when they jump on the podcast is give them a bit of an opportunity to explain a bit about themselves and their background. So tell us a bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Yeah, so look, about 18 years ago, I'd been working at the ABC, and so I was ready to move on. I'd been there for about 10 years. So at the time, my brother, Ernest Tobia, who was an optometrist, and myself started to look at business opportunities. And at that time, we decided to enter in the optical industry where he was already quite well established. And so together we've co-owned and operated a number of practices over the years. And a couple of years into opening up a couple of optometry practices, we saw the birth of Eye2eye. And today I'm a director of Eye2eye, and we've worked with over 600 practices over the years. So I'm very passionate about working with practices, helping them grow and seeing them thrive in the optometry landscape.
That's awesome. What led you to specialize in marketing within the optometry field? Because that seems to be a little bit of a niche sort of pursuit. So can you talk to us a bit more about that and how you got into that?
Yeah, sure. So prior to entering the optometry industry, I actually worked at the ABC for a period of 10 years. I specifically worked in the commercial arm, which was ABC Enterprises, and I worked in the licensing department. So at the time, it's many years ago, Bananas in Pajamas was the number one preschool brand worldwide. It was absolutely huge. And through that opportunity, I learned so much about branding, licensing, and marketing. I also worked on Play School, Triple J, Kath and Kim, and I also launched Peppa Pig in Australia.
Wow.
So that was an exciting period of my life. So I guess it was taking all of my learnings through that. And after a couple of years of opening up the optometry practices, it's like, okay, so what are we going to do with them now? And started to look at opportunities. And that's where we saw the birth of Eye2eye, where we put a screen in one of the practices that played an optical loop. And from that, an idea was born. Eye2eye was created, and from there we ended up installing 500 screens across the country and in New Zealand that played an optical loop for the waiting room. So yeah, and so since then the business has evolved over the years, and we're primarily now focusing on helping practices through their patient recalls and bringing more of their patients back into the practices.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. And I guess, the vision behind Eye2eye Marketing 360, which is obviously the company that you've mentioned there, how does the organization impact optometry practices? You mentioned the screens. Obviously, that's something that I'm very well aware of, and I'm sure a lot of people in the industry have had exposure to them or know about them. But I guess what's the vision today, and how does your organization impact optometry practices?
So our company vision is actually to prevent irreversible vision loss. So yes, I guess that's a pretty bold statement, but one that we are proud of. So through our recall service, that's primarily our objective. My team know that every time they make a call to a patient, it's our responsibility to ensure that the patient understands the importance of coming back for that regular eye check. And also educating the patient. We talk to a lot of patients and they'll come back and they'll say, oh, my script hasn't changed, my glasses are still working, it's all great. So what we do, we highlight the importance of them to ensure that they're coming back, because when they do come in for an eye test, it's more about checking that they don't have a change in their prescription. The optom is also checking the health of the eye, especially if there's family history there with glaucoma, MDs, if they're a diabetic. So that is our mission ultimately, and the girls do feel a huge sense of responsibility, but that is our objective. And we want to make sure that every single patient who was here 12 or 24 months ago and is due for a recall has that message has been communicated to them, and they know they must come back in for their eye test.
Yeah, it's always nice to hear that, behind, I guess, the business activity, there is that broader impact of making a difference to somebody that, you're working on. And that obviously in our industry is pretty key to what we do, because there is a lot of benefit with regards to the health side of how we approach things, and the health side of, or the health nature of our business in any case. So that's awesome to hear that.
Yeah.
You touched on patient recalls. It's very much a big focus of today's conversation. Probably a simplistic concept from the point of view of understanding what it is and I guess why it's important. But I think it's also, critical that we touch on this and sort of explain to the listeners, if they don't know, or if they haven't thought about it, or if they have thought about it, the importance of patient recalls. And I guess to get that going, what exactly are patient recalls? And again, quite simple, but I think an important question, and why are they so crucial for optometry practices?
Sure. So look, Michael, I don't know about yourself, but my life is so hectic, between running a company, I'm a mum, there's simply just not enough hours in a day. So it's so easy for me personally to lose track of things like scheduling an annual checkup, or, booking medical appointments for my children, dental checkups. So timely follow-ups ensure that our patients are receiving the ongoing attention that they need for optimal eye health. It's our duty of care, it's the optometrist's duty of care to ensure patients are coming back regularly. So it's not just about ticking the box, it's about that continuity of care. It's about catching issues early. It's about showing patients that we care about their well-being. As the saying goes, prevention is better than cure. So it's a practice's responsibility to ensure that patients are coming back in a timely manner, whether it's 12, 24, whatever that period of time is that the optometrist nominates. The last thing any practice or optometrist wants is for a diabetic patient to go unseen for a couple of years, then to come back for an eye test and realise that their vision has been affected because they have missed an appointment. So nobody wants to see that scenario. So
Yeah.
recalls are so important that every single practice has a structure, has a system and a strategy in place to ensure that every single patient is being followed up and reminded that they are due to come back into the practice in a timely manner.
Yeah, and I guess the reasons as to what they are and why we do them is, like I said earlier, are pretty simple. But considering that patient recalls are a pretty well-known item, I guess, and pretty well-known thing as to how to do and quite simple to do, why do you find practices struggle with this? And in your experience with the practices that you've dealt with in assisting them with patient recalls, what are the main challenges that they have?
So I think what happens is the responsibility may be put onto one person, and they just simply may not have a good structure, process or system in place that's documented and followed by all at practice level. So somebody may be responsible for it. The communication maybe wasn't clear that was their responsibility. They've maybe done it 1 month, maybe they haven't done it the following month, maybe they didn't have instructions on how often it needs to be done. So that consistency maybe is not there. Some people just simply get too caught up in the doing of the day-to-day at practice level. So whether it be unpacking jobs, notifying patients, placing orders, cleaning the practice, it's the actual visual that they see on a day-to-day basis of what needs to happen in the practice for the practice to continue to run. I guess recalls is a bit of a, something that happens behind the scene. It's an administrative task. So unless there is a proper system in place to ensure that it's happening regularly on a monthly basis, then it's quite easy for that whole process to fall over, not happen. And so people may not be trained in exactly how to do it. So they might be doing it, but they might not be doing it properly. I've seen practices where they're running a recall report, but they're actually not entering the criteria correctly. So they may be doing it, but they're not actually doing it correctly, or just different little things. Sometimes practices have optoms coming and going, and they're putting in different criteria in, when patients are due to come back. So again, just there isn't that consistency at practice level. So my advice would be to ensure that whatever the process is going to be in practice, document it and make sure it's followed by all. And new staff come on board, make sure they're trained in it.
Yeah, I think the takeaways that I'm hearing from you are structure, process, and consistency to ensure that it gets done. And I'm sure there are a lot of practice owners that are listening to this that are probably like, oh, that I get that. Or, a lot of the nature of a lot of the practices that we work with, obviously they are family businesses. They are, team-wise, perhaps a little bit limited, a little bit, under stress and focusing on the day-to-day things, not just within the business, but also in personal life.
That's right.
There are families, there are other things that we've got to manage. So that process and structure is critical. You started to hint towards some effective, tried and tested methods for patient recalls in your experience. Are there some that you can share with us in that regard?
Yeah, sure. So look, within our own practices, about 10 years ago, we were really frustrated with really poor recall success rates. And when I say poor, we're talking average of 10 to 12%, which I think is pretty poor, even though that is probably the industry standard for traditional methods like SMS or email. So we thought, this is crazy. These are our patients. They've been here before. They know who we are. We gave them great service. Why are they not coming back? So we thought, maybe it's our strategy. Maybe we have to do things differently. There's got to be a better way. So we thought, we'll have the ladies at the front desk call them instead and see if we can improve the traction. So whilst we saw a lift, it was great. Logistically, it wasn't ideal. So just too hard, too many interruptions with patients coming in, reps, couriers, etc. So we decided that when we saw that it was going to work, we decided to employ somebody specifically who was comfortable on the phone, who'd come from working in such an environment in the past. So really important that the person doing it is comfortable and confident. And we put her in a separate office out the back. And basically what that did to the recalls was we saw a double success rate in month 1.
Wow.
So year on year, that figure continues to improve. As the patients get used to the call, they expect the call. They're waiting for the call. Furthermore, whilst we're actually calling the patients, we now have the opportunity to do our data hygiene. So, patients move away, they decide to go somewhere else, they may even be deceased. So whilst we're calling patients, it's also an opportunity to clean up the database, which ultimately means we're no longer going to waste time or money communicating to patients who are never going to be coming back to the practice. And then ultimately, we're going to be achieving a better success rate year on year as the people we're calling a cleaner database. So our recall success rate will continue to be higher. So that's been 10 years for that particular practice, and that recall success rate, sits over 50% now. And I'm talking about month 1. So then obviously month 2, month 3, that figure will continue to increase.
Yeah, I think the two takeaways there that I really can resonate with is the fact that you identified that this is a really maybe a specialist task. And, just because you've got the receptionist that maybe has the time to do it, are they the best person for the role? Are they the best fit for the role? And are their skill set in that phone, I guess, mannerisms or the phone etiquette, whatever that may be? So having a specialist there, I could definitely see how that could be a benefit. And the other term that I like that you used was data hygiene. I've never really heard of it referenced that way. So I think that's an awesome one. And I think if there's a take home today amongst, the few that we'll discuss, I reckon, practices need to ensure that their data is, I guess, hygienic.
Absolutely.
To keep it in concept with the terms. So how hygienic is your data and how up to date is it? I think that's a really critical point. A simple question, but I think an important one. How do patient recalls impact practice revenue in terms of what you've seen?
Sure, absolutely. Look, Michael, as I mentioned previously, purely by changing our strategy in month 1, that recall success rate doubled. So, you can imagine what that, the potential opportunities are. So if you just take a small example, a recall success rate of 10%, and you base that on 100 patients, that's 10 patients. If you can double that, that's bringing in an extra 10 patients per month. So if we then multiply that by the average dollar spend per consultation, let's call an industry average of $380. Hopefully most people listening, theirs is higher than that, but I think $380 is probably be a bit, would be conservative for the industry average. That's an extra $3,800 per month to the practice simply by changing the strategy. Yes, it's going to cost you more money to call a patient than send them an SMS, but if you actually look at the investment and the potential return of what that can bring in, the ROI can be tenfold. So, who wouldn't be happy with that? So just one slight change can make a dramatic difference. And I think people get scared of change, or they're scared of, spending more money than they currently are on a strategy. But if you actually dig deeper and go, okay, well, why don't I try this for a month and see what it could potentially look like? Then I've never known anyone to not be happy with the results that it can deliver.
Yeah, it seems to be one of the more simple levers that a practice can make an improvement on. And I guess we'll touch on KPIs and what to be looking at in this regard, but you can be quite systematic in terms of noting that improvement and then bringing that back down to sort of an expected target or an expected revenue. And I think when you can translate it into that type of metric, the success of it and the simplicity of it all, I guess, ties together, and it makes it almost like a no-brainer in terms of something that, a practice can look to improve on. Can you provide some examples of how successful recalls have transformed the practice from the experience that you've had? I'm not sure. You don't have to obviously name the store or anything like that, but just an example of, of how you identified this as something that could be an improvement and what that looked like.
Yeah, I'll give you some examples, but before I do, I guess it's just really important to highlight, having a solid strategy in place. It not only is going to obviously benefit the practice, it's also going to benefit the patient. So, if you've got a streamlined process in place, it's going to reduce the admin burden. It's going to provide higher patient retention, which is going to lead to increased revenue through the regular, appointments. And also in today's, crazy, mad digital, fast-paced digital world we're living in, I think if we can be delivering personalised patient care, it delivers such a positive reputation for the practice within the community. So, there's so many benefits to the practice and also the patients. So, if we're recalling them in a timely manner, it's monitoring their eye health, on time. So we're going to have the opportunity to detect something early. It obviously improves the patient experience and satisfaction if they know and they can rely that their optometrist is going to be in touch with them when they're due in 12 months. And, it just instills confidence and builds trust, with patients and the practice. So once a practice realizes all these, mutual benefits. It's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah.
It's going to support the practice growth and it's going to support patient satisfaction. So I guess a couple examples for you. We've seen a few different practices going from, industry average with traditional methods across our industry. The statistics sort of sit anywhere between I've seen as low as 5% up to sort of maybe 16% recall success rate. Simply by changing the strategy, we've seen practices double, sometimes triple their recall success rates from month one. The most recent one, they more than doubled theirs. Our practice that I spoke about earlier, that's currently sitting over 50%. We've got practices at 45%,
Wow.
high 30s. So, I could confidently say to any practice owner, I know simply by changing your strategy from day one, you will immediately improve on whatever it is you're currently doing if it's, in a traditional method.
I guess we've highlighted the importance of patient recalls, and we can clearly see, how it can be a benefit to a store. And again, I guess more than anything, we're probably just reaffirming what a lot of people already know. But when we look at the KPIs or the key performance indicators related to recalls, we've touched on a few, but what are the most important KPIs that one needs to monitor when it comes to, understanding their recall strategy and then obviously working on, I guess, improving it?
So I guess obviously the recall success rate being the most important. So the KPI report will provide that, even breaks it down to month one, and then, further months. So understanding what that is, everybody should know. It's amazing how many practices I come across and they've, haven't looked at a KPI report for years or ever. Number two is also knowing what your average dollar spend is per consultation and what that value is. And thirdly is what percentage of your business is actually existing patients and what percentage is new. I'd be encouraging everyone to be looking at their KPI report on a monthly basis. So if you're not, I would suggest you start doing that, and also ensure you're looking at it on an annual basis as well and pinpointing areas for improvement year on year and implementing changes and then measure that and track it and go, okay, let's do, year on year, can we improve on those different areas of those numbers that you're not so happy with?
Now, you mentioned recall rate percentages. With regards to averages, you've mentioned normally most practices are hovering anywhere between 5 and 16%, I think you mentioned.
Yes.
And you've seen it as high as 50%.
Well, once you change a strategy, it can go up that high, yes.
Yeah. So there is that possibility, I guess, and most of the software out there that practices are using will obviously identify this. Across the practice management systems that you see, is this an easy to extract figure? Is it something that you're
absolutely
able to? Okay.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So that's easy to do it, and then you can, I guess, hone in on that and start to work on that from a target point of view, and learn more about those strategies, I guess, as well along the way. Average dollar spend, that's a pretty interesting one, I guess, and quite well understood.
Yeah.
But can you explain a little bit more as to how they tie in together?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, essentially, to work out the average dollar spend per consultation, so you've got to be careful because the KPI report will also give you your spectacle spend as well, but you want to be looking for the one that actually says average dollar spend per consultation, because what that is, that's your total annual revenue divided by your total number of appointments. So again, we can just go off by an industry average, say, call it $350 to $400. That figure, once you understand what that figure is, that's what every single patient is worth to you when they book an appointment. So I think if a practice can focus on that figure and knowing that every time they're going to book in a patient into their appointment book through their recall process, that's potentially what their patient is worth. So it really just highlights the importance to ensure that the practice has the most successful method in place to ensure they are bringing back as many patients as they can every single month who are due.
And can you tell us a little bit more about the importance of something that you've mentioned, if you can expand on it, the understanding the mix between new and existing business and how it can influence a practice's growth and stability?
Again, the KPI report provides this, as well as, a whole lot of other really exciting statistics. I love numbers, so I get excited by what it breaks down. Break it down by age group, what percentage is, under 18, breaks it down by age category. But basically, this particular one is the new and the existing. Again, in the optometry space, in the independent space, a very large percentage of your patients that are coming back every year are existing patients, and that figure can be as high as 80 to 85%. If you're getting closer to 25%, 30%, then you're doing really well in gaining new customers, which is fantastic.
Right.
But most people are sitting around that probably 80 to 85%. So that's a big portion of the business. So it's so crucial to know that you've implemented the best recall strategy to ensure that you're bringing those patients back year on year. And remembering, it's going to cost you more money to gain a new customer than keep an existing one. So what are we doing to make sure we're bringing our patients back every single year?
Okay, so I guess we've identified the importance of the existing business, and it's clear to see how that ties in with the patient recalls. But if we want to leverage that existing business, how does one maintain regular communication with existing patients, and how does this contribute to a practice's success?
Sure. So I guess in a landscape where there's so much noise from other larger corporate optical companies, it's so crucial to stay top of mind with patients. So contacting them once a year or once every 2 years with a text message to remind them due for an eye test is simply not going to cut it. It's just not enough. So you really need to be engaging with them more often than when they're just due for an eye test. You need to be the first place they think of as soon as they have an eye need.
And with regards to how a practice can integrate their marketing strategies to boost patient recalls, I guess when we think of patient recalls, it's just we think of the call. Are there other ways that you can, I guess, leverage or integrate your marketing in this instance, that you can look at it perhaps a little bit more holistically as opposed to it being one phone call or one sort of touch point?
Yeah, absolutely. So, regular communication is so important. So whether it be via email, whether it be social media, through community participation or loyalty programs, it keeps you top of mind. So as soon as they do have that eye care need, they will come to you. I often hear people complain, we don't collect email addresses. I'm like, well, start collecting them today. So 12 months from now, you're going to have a few hundred email addresses. Or we don't have followers on social media. Okay, so start asking them to follow you. Give them a reason. Incentivize them to follow you so that they're not missing out on important eye health messages from you, or, giving them information about your latest promotions or new brands that you're stocking in practice. There's also loyalty programs. They don't have to be over complex or complicated. It can be as simple as, refer a friend and get X. I always encourage to value add rather than, offer a discount. So definitely something, again, keeping them in contact with you. Community involvement with one of our practices. We sponsor a local netball club. The club provides all their players, there's about 300 players, with a jersey, and our practice logo is on the back of the jersey. So that's 300 players walking around the local community. They're walking billboards. So, for a cost of a few $100s, a simple exercise like that, it just gets your name out there. It shows the community that you care, that you're involved. Little things like that. You don't have to have elaborate marketing plans in place, but little things that you can start doing. There's no excuse. If you're not collecting emails, you can start doing that. You can start asking patients in practice to follow you. Just staying top of mind with them. Like I said, once a year or once every 2 years, they're going to forget about you. So there is a lot of noise out there. So it's just about staying top of mind and having that brand awareness and recognition. So as soon as they have that eye care need, they come to you.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right about the noise, and with social media and the different methods of communication, entertainment these days, it's something that you've got to be a part of. And it probably brings you back almost full circle to your ABC days when, you were looking more at that marketing and the licensing, and you see elements of what was successful then and how it's important now, and
Yes.
how stores should be utilizing things like you've mentioned, which are really, I guess, not rocket science from the point of view. People know that, but it's the question of identifying it and then, maybe acting on it in some capacity.
Yeah, absolutely.
In reflection on our conversation today, as sort of we get towards the end of it all, what key insight do you hope our listeners take away from what we've discussed today?
I hope that if they don't know their KPIs off the top of their heads, then they start looking at a KPI report more regularly, so say monthly and also annually, and to constantly improve on their results and what they're achieving. And if they're not happy with them, to be implementing strategies to improve them and continue to track and measure and see if your new strategies are working And if they're not, then change your strategy again. So, unless your appointment books are fully booked for the next 2 to 3 weeks, there's always room for improvement. Remembering that ultimately the patients are the lifeblood of a business. So they really need to make recalls a priority. And especially if a large percentage of their customers are existing, if you're not completely satisfied with what the results are showing, then look at changing your strategy and make it the best it can be to bring more patients back into the practice year on year.
And I think, the strategy part is obviously a part that can be a conversation that can go for quite a while. But I think what I've taken away from our conversation is the fact that really in this instance, you probably need to be speaking to a specialist, someone like yourself who really knows, the ins and outs of what needs to be done for effective recalls. And I think that, recognizing that is really a specialized task that we can all learn more about is something as well. So I guess as a practice, if you're contemplating or considering that, learning more about those strategies, getting in touch with people like yourself that know, or speaking to, respective suppliers or whoever you're getting your support from to just bounce the idea off them in terms of how they can improve their recall strategies and what that actually looks like to them. But at the very least, I think recognizing what your recall rate percentage is, I think if that's a one take home from my point of view, identifying with that figure and starting to work on improving that figure. And that could be simplistic in how you do it, or there could be some more, I guess, complicated strategies to get that sort of up and away.
Yes.
As the optometry industry continues to evolve, what emerging technologies or practices do you believe will have the most significant impact on patient engagement and clinical growth in the coming years?
Yeah, look, there's probably a few things there, but for me personally, I'm super excited and passionate and have been for the last 12 months about AI and what that means for, not only the industry, but, the whole world and the way we're going to live life. So I think AI will definitely have an impact on optometry through enhanced diagnostic accuracy, through streamlined patient management, through improved patient education, personalised treatment solutions, and also accelerated research and development. So lots of exciting opportunities there.
Yeah.
And I believe practices who embrace AI technologies will be able to provide cutting edge care. They'll be able to foster stronger patient relationships and drive clinic growth. So there's no need to be scared of AI. It's the way the world is going. It's here and it's not going anywhere. So I think people just need to learn to embrace it and utilize it to their advantage.
Yeah. I guess to make that relative to recall, I mean, do you see any instances where AI can assist with patient recalls or anything along those lines? Have you seen anything in your experience that, can point us to some things where that might be able to do something?
Look, I think in things like there'll be more automations, I guess, instead of maybe sending out appointment reminders, the day before an appointment's due. I guess, through the patient management, CRMs, I think AI is going to potentially be able to tailor solutions more specific to patients, drilling down to, an individual patient need. Are we going to see AI robots calling patients to book in an appointment? I don't know, maybe one day in 5 or 10 years, definitely not in the immediate future.
No.
My team asks me that question every day. So, it's maybe a long way down the track, but not anytime soon. So
yes.
we take pride in offering that absolute personalised service. And I think that's why it works so well, because it's so personalised, it's so tailored to each individual person and practice.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And where can our listeners learn more about you and Eye2eye Marketing 360 if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, so look, they can get in touch with us through our website, which is eye2eyemarketing360.com.au, via LinkedIn or via any of our socials at Eye2eye Marketing 360.
Cool. And those details will be in our show notes as always. So if people want to check out more details in that regard, head over to our website and you'll be able to see that in the show notes. Other than that, Fatin, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really insightful and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for inviting me along, Michael. I really enjoyed being here today, so I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us on The Focused View, proudly presented by Opticare. It's been our privilege to share the insights and stories that resonate deeply with the eye care community. We hope today's episode has not only inspired you, but also armed you with the practical strategies and innovative ideas to help you enhance your practice and professional journey. If you found value in our conversation, we'd be grateful if you could leave us a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform. and share this episode with your colleagues. It helps us reach more eye care professionals like you and grow our community of visionaries. Stay connected by subscribing to The Focused View and visiting our website www.thefocusedview.com.au for additional resources and episode summaries. We look forward to your company again in our next episode. Until then, keep focused. I'm Michael Nasser. Bye for now.